What's up, good people? Came back here real quick. I wanted to give everybody an update. It's been quite a while since I posted anything on this build, and just want to walk you through a few things that I've done. As you can see, it looks a lot more complete than it did the last time you saw it. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of things that are on here, and then we'll jump into some of the processes and some of the parts that I made, so you can get a peek at that. All right, I figured we'd start here on the engine. You can see that obviously the engine's in the bike now. Last time you saw it, I believe it was either being painted or being assembled. Got the exhaust on, got the carbs on. I've actually gotten it running at this point. It sounds pretty good too. I think I'll drop a clip in here from that I recorded with my cell phone. You'll be able to see it and hear it running. Next thing here is I've got the foot pegs and some temporary, I'm calling these mounts temporary. I just made them out of 1/4-inch steel. I drew up some plans to have these cut out of aluminum on the CNC, but for now these steel plates are doing the trick. Not sure how exciting this is, but I did have to alter the kickstand and bring that little foot catch up a little bit higher on the shaft of the kickstand, because when you kick it up in its original position, kind of on the toe of the kickstand, it would kind of hide behind the foot peg bracket there, and you couldn't really get your foot on it to bring it out. So if I swing it up, you can see now that it's a lot more accessible to your foot, whereas before it would have been hiding behind the foot peg bracket back there. So did that as well. All right, next up here we got the brake linkage. You can see here I flipped the brake linkage upside down just because it was interfering with the way that it reached out to the foot pedal over here. And so that seems to be working out pretty good. There's minimal bend in this in the rod, but I haven't taken it for like a true test ride yet to see what the feel is like. If it feels a little too sloppy, then I'll probably do a little fabrication and create a new, like, thicker brake rod. But for now, it seems to be doing the job, at least from, sitting static and testing out the brake feel. You can also see that I've had a couple of parts powder coated. Obviously, we got the red hub there, and then I just got the stock wheels powder coated black and put some new stainless spokes on there from Buchanan's. These shocks I got from Progressive, and I'm gonna withhold judgment for now. But one thing I will say is I bought these shocks and I had to send them back twice because one of the shocks would not rebound after you depressed it. So I took the spring off, or before I actually put the spring on, I wanted to get an idea of what the stroke was like, so I knew if I had clearance between the tire and the underbody of the frame and the pan there. And one of the shocks would not rebound. It was just kind of stuck, and I had to pull it back out. So obviously that's not great. Send it back, no problem. They sent me another pair, same exact thing happened. So I'm like, WTF. So I send it back again, and I think they ended up actually rebuilding the pair that I sent back rather than send out another faulty pair. But I don't know, word to the wise, shop around. I don't know if anybody else has had similar experience, but it's something that I'm going to keep an eye on as I go out for a test ride. So I'm going to see how those shocks perform. All right, and here's a look at the front hub. I took the OG brake rotor to O'Reilly's of all places and had them actually turn it. And you know, it's still in spec in terms of what's stamped on the rotor, but I had them turn it to get like a bunch of old brake pad material off of there, and there was some scoring in there. And so it's nice and smooth now, and it has enough meat left on it to be still serviceable. You can see I got that powder coated red as well, and also the brake caliper. And then I just I cleaned up the middle part of the brake rotor and just spray painted it black with some I think like Rust-Oleum satin black or something like that. The theme of this bike is kind of like all matte and satin, and I'll point out a couple of parts that are currently glossy, and but they're sort of still being worked on. They're in the in-between stage. All right, here you got a quick peek at the M-Unit Blue. I did a whole custom wiring harness. These kind of like loose taped up wires. These are in there temporarily since I ran them through the frame, and I'm gonna have to pull them back through in order to get the powder coating and everything done. So in a couple of different places, I've just got like electric tape because it's a temporary install, or the wire is hella long, like in the case of this license plate bracket. It's really long, but you know, once I do the final install, I'll cut it down to length and install it after everything's powder coated. All right, I got this little starter solenoid and main fuse from Revival Cycles. The first one I got was a dud, but I contacted them and they sent out a replacement, no problem. It was just like almost like falling apart to the point where the bike would be running and it would cut off because the fuse would essentially disconnect. But anyway, like I said, they replaced it, no problem. So good customer service. This one's been pretty solid at this point. All right, this is my battery setup here. You can see I'm using a small anti-gravity battery, and I welded on these two tabs. There's a tab on either side with a piece of the packing foam that they ship with the anti-gravity battery, and it just kind of holds it in place side to side. On the front and the back, I put these kind of these brackets where this Velcro strip really just kind of loops around and it cinches it down essentially. So it's a nice clean install here. So you can see how that works there. Pretty simple, straightforward, but it keeps everything in place. I like these little clips, these tiny little Mizu clips that I also got from Revival Cycle. They save a lot of space. They are a bit of a pain in the butt to put together just because they're so tiny, and the little connectors that go in there are a little tough to work with, but it's worth the effort and the frustration, I think, in the end product. All right, here's an under the hood look at sort of where the wiring harness leads. So you can see I've got everything wrapped up there. I used Tessa tape. This is my very first time doing this. So I wasn't gonna try to like put everything in a loom that you slip everything in, and you have to be real strategic about when you put which parts in there so you don't trap yourself in. So I said, screw it. I'm gonna just tape it up for my first shot. So I used Tessa tape. It's kind of like a cloth tape, really strong tape that they use in automotive industry, and it's a clean look for my purposes. Also upgraded the charging and the ignition system. So I put these Dyna coils in there. My OEM coils were both cracked, and you could see like whatever's inside was leaking out. Also in here, I replaced the stator from Rick's Electric, and then I also used one of Rick's Electric, their regulator rectifier, or rectifier regulator, however you say it. That's friendly with lithium ion batteries. It's not a MOSFET unit, so it's down there where it can get a little bit more airflow instead of being like inside the seat pan. I know people have done that with no problems, but it's my first shot, so I'm gonna kind of stick to the rules a little bit. All right, this other part of my electric system is I put this ground bar in here, this kind of a ground bus. So this line goes back to the chassis, and I think it goes to the chassis, either the chassis or the M unit. The chassis is also grounded, obviously, but all of the grounds that come from like the handlebar controls, any of the grounds that come from up here on the bike, they all lead back to this ground bus. So I have one clean spot that I know I can trace everything back to. And so that was just like another, I think I found this on Amazon too. And it was just a clean way to do grounds, and it tucks up under the gas tank nicely, so it's nice and hidden. But again, it's getting the main ground feed here. So this is either coming from the chassis or the M unit, and then all of the other grounds are connected on those lugs there, and then this little cap just comes off. And you can see here I got the Dyna S ignition, electronic ignition in there, replacing the points, just to kind of keep it all in the family with the Dyna coils. So that should provide me with a little bit more of a stable, reliable ignition system. Won't have to worry about cleaning points and replacing points and all that kind of good stuff, resetting points. This is kind of the set it and forget it method. You can see here I've got mirrors on there as well on both sides. I just use CRG's lane splitter, hindsight lane splitter. I kind of like these. I've got them on my Daily Rider XSR 900. I went with Rizoma's Saguardo, I think is how you say it, Saguardo bar end turn signals. I really like how those look. I looked at Moto Gadgets. I actually like these a little bit better, and the price is actually better than Moto Gadget units as well. So pick those up. I had to actually get those shipped from Italy, and they shipped blazing fast. I did use the Moto Gadget. I think these are like the M switch basics or something like that. I forget what they call them, but the 3-button switches here, I really like the layout of those. I've got this same switch on each side. They make a left and a right. I reused the stock perch and the stock levers for now. I kind of like the raw aluminum look, contrasting with the black. Really matches up well with the Rizoma Saguardo grips too. So you got those aluminum grips with the rubber knurls on them. That's a good look. I like that a lot. All right, up top here we have the Dynamic Duo from Dime City Cycles. We got the speedo and the tachometer. They're actually switched around from their final positions at the moment. Speedo will be on the left, the tach will be on the right. I looked at some other stuff, like some stuff from Daytona and others, but a lot of people are doing a lot of digital stuff right now, or like a combination of analog and digital in the same unit. And I really wanted the analog look with the needles on both sides. So these are both analog. They use the cable drives from the OEM system, so the tachometer comes off the engine and the speedometer goes down to the wheel. So and they're not that expensive. They were actually really cheap. I don't know about their longevity. I know a lot of people use them. They're fairly popular, so we're going to see how they work out. I like the look of them. They're really small and minimalistic. They're already kind of like that satin black, and so they seem to fit the bill. We'll see how they work out. I also like that the speedometer has all of the indicator lights on it, so high beam, neutral, oil light, and the turn signal. So I didn't have to do those individually or find another way to put those on, so that's another nice bonus. One thing that I'm wrestling with right now, I'm trying to figure it out, is this bike actually came with a gear position indicator in the stock cluster. So I took that out of the stock cluster and I tried to plug it in, but it wouldn't light up for me. So I'm still trying to chase that down. I'm wondering if I'm doing something wrong or if the actual indicator light is dead. But it would be kind of nice to have that little indicator in here along with these modern gauges. So if I could figure it out, I'll put it in the middle somewhere when I fabricate the mounting brackets for these two. And it'd be nice to just retain that functionality, especially on a bike this old. You don't see that very often, at least not that I'm aware of. So it'd be nice to be able to keep that functionality. I'm gonna keep tinkering with it. And now I want to talk about a couple of parts that I had some fun making. This is the first time I'm making a bike, and also the first time I'm working with some of these materials. This front fender is a 100% carbon fiber, and epoxy. So I used the original, the stock front fender as pretty much a template. And so you can see it's one of those glossy parts that I talked about. And you can also see the edges are still like kind of rough. This part is still in process. So I've gotten enough epoxy on there. It's glossy and it's wavy. So the surface is really uneven at this point. But that'll get a final sanding, and then it'll get sprayed over with like a satin or a matte clear coat to provide UV protection and also protection from like gas and oil and whatever else. All right, you can see we have pretty much the same kind of deal here with this front cowl that I made. This was actually the rear cowl, my second attempt at creating a rear cowl, and I didn't quite like how it fit on the frame. So I decided to salvage it and turn it into the front cowl here. I kind of like it. It's okay for now. I might end up changing it or making a new one. I'm going to keep it for now though. But again, this is one of those parts that I made out of carbon fiber, and it's currently glossy, and the surface finish is imperfect, and it's still a work in progress. So it'll get the same final sanding and satin finish clear coat on it when it's done. I just picked this headlight up off Amazon. It's a pretty bright LED. The plastic that covers the lens is 100% trash. It's when you wipe it, even with a towel, it leaves scuffs on it. So I might hit that with some like clear coat too, just to keep it from getting all scuffed up. And then the other thing that was pretty much trash were the mounts that came with it. So I picked up these other mounts. They're a little bit better. All right, more carbon fiber. This here is the fuel door cover. This one I skinned in carbon fiber because it has a metal hinge on the underside that allows it to be attached to the tank itself. And so I didn't want to try to like recreate that hinge or something out of carbon fiber, so I just skinned it. I think it turned out pretty good though, and it also allows me to keep the stock key set for that lock. Again, that part is pretty shiny, imperfect surface. You know, rinse and repeat. It'll get sanded down and have a satin clear coat applied to it. But I think it turned out pretty good. Like so far, pretty satisfied with how that turned out. All right, and a little bit more carbon fiber. This is a chain guard and heel guard combination, if you will. So you can see here, I just used some thin bar stock and bent it up to make the chain guard. And then in the middle there is the heel guard. So you can see that on the chain guard, I had this little cutout just so it wouldn't interfere with the wheel, just because, you know, there's not a ton of room in between like this shock and the tire. So I did like a little, like a cutout or an indentation just to have some clearance between the chain guard and the wheel. The last piece of carbon fiber that I currently have on here is really just the license plate bracket. I made a piece of flat stock carbon fiber so I could cut some different pieces out of. So I made the bracket for there out of the flat stock that I made, and then the same deal with the heel guard and the top cover on that chain guard. I cut those all out of the flat stock piece that I put together. So I also used this little cheap Grizzly slip roll that I bought and curved this license plate bracket, put some terrible welds on the back to create like a little bit of a bracket where those two screws there, those two screws that are closest to the bracket, mount into the steel mounting bracket on the back. And then I did the same deal with this little license plate light bracket. I created that little bracket and welded it on there. So this tube here, you might be thinking like, what the heck is that? But because I have a like this side mount license plate, I had to run the electric for the wire somewhere. And so you can see the wire just coming out, and it flows down, it goes through that tube, and then it goes into this frame, and up the frame and into the electrics box with everything else. That was a pain in the butt to do that, but hey, it's done. I'm trying to keep everything like nice and clean and hidden. The back of the bike is really clean. There's like no real wires or anything. No turn signals up there. You know, we've got that little LED bar. I want to try to keep it that way as much as possible. Still to be created out of carbon fiber is the rear cowl, and that'll be, I think, take 3. And so I think I'll reshape the foam that I used to create it the first time around, and hopefully I'll get a little bit better fit and I'll be happier with how it turns out. All right, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of where we are in the build and some of the things that we've been doing along the way. It's funny you say we, it's just me. Some of the things I've been doing along the way, it's been a fun process. It's been an educational process. I made some mistakes along the way. I've had to redo a couple of things, but in my mind, especially as a first-time builder, I feel like that's part of the process. Moving forward with these last few items that we have to do to wrap up the build, I think I'm going to try to film a little bit more, just because they are those final pieces that get you really close to what the final bike is going to actually look like. So we'll try to film a little bit more of that. I'll definitely film the final assembly once I strip it apart, have everything powder coated, so on and so forth. I'll film the final assembly so you guys can get a look at that. Those videos are always fun, so I'll make sure to film that kind of stuff. Plus it'll give you more of a look into what it is that I'm trying to do with the bike overall in terms of its aesthetic. You get a little bit of an idea here just from the stuff that I've shown you already, but there are some things that I haven't talked about yet and that you won't be able to fully appreciate, hopefully appreciate, until you actually see it. So when we get to that point, obviously we'll have some footage to show you. Some of the things that may be interesting moving forward, like painting the tank. I've got to like clean the rust out of the inside of the tank and maybe apply a liner. Some of that kind of stuff, I'll film that as well, just because it might be interesting. It might be educational for somebody to watch it. And, you know, if I make mistakes along the way, I'll talk about them so you don't have to make those same mistakes in your builds. We have the rear cowl, we have the seat to finish up. And then obviously, you know, some of the little details that may not merit, you know, their own episode, so to speak, or, you know, pointing out just kind of some detail work. Things that I think might be interesting to the viewers, I'll make sure to try to get some footage, even if it's not enough to do like an episode for that specific thing. I'll try to get some footage just to show you, you know, here's a little bit of what that process looks like. So anyway, that's kind of where we are now. Thanks for joining me here again on this video. Thanks for all the new subscribers who have joined since the last time I put a video up, which is over a year at this point. I think it was like last November or something like that. Thanks for the folks who continue to write in and post comments on the old video to say, you know, hey, that's a good job, or even just ask questions like, where'd you get this thing, or how'd you do this other thing? I really appreciate that engagement, so keep it coming. If you're not already subscribed, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the bell as well so that you get notified when I post my next video, and we'll see you guys again on the next video. All right, peace.